sir. That's awesome. There you go. A little CSI music for you, Colonel.
I'm still recovering from the boogie.
Well, don't get too comfortable because you're going to boogie here in a little while.
Oh, yeah.
Congratulations, Colonel Milstead. That is, I know Colonel Sanders, Colonel Klink,
And now
Colonel Milstead.
and it's Colonel with a C.
With a C. Yeah, there you go. I don't get that. But that's all right.
It's the
Hey,
other.
well, hang on. Well, of course, now I get it. Well, welcome. Good to have you here. And tell us, by the way, you're not the first Frank Milstead to be
I'm the first Frank Milstead. I'm not the first Colonel Milstead.
Oh, okay.
In 1980, my father was appointed to this exact same position by Governor Babbitt back then. And so he was there for about 10 years. So 25 years later, I occupy the same position, moved into a building with his name on it, and moved into his office, actually. So it's been pretty surreal.
Oh, that is awesome. So when you were a little kid, the office that you used to sneak into and maybe catch a little nap, now you just nap there and it's your office.
I appreciate you believing that I might have been that young. I appreciate that. Thank you.
So from 80 to 90, there was a Colonel Milstead.
Yes, sir.
Milstead, and now, so for 25 years there, we were basically Milstead free.
Right, exactly.
But it's a lot safer now with you at the helm. So tell us a little bit about your duties as in your new position.
You know, it's interesting. One of my goals in the department is I don't think a lot of people know what the Arizona Department of Public Safety actually does, who they are, and what their functions are. In fact, when I first got the job, a woman thought that I was there to help with her power. She thought I was with APS. And I said, no, this is DPS. And we are not the power company, but the department actually has a statutory mandates, and one of those is the Arizona Highway Patrol. So we are the Arizona Highway Patrol, and that Highway Patrol uniform really is the face of the agency, and it's what people think of. But on top of that, we run laboratory service for the entire state. So when you need CSI, when you need DNA samples analyzed, you need whatever done, that goes through a state laboratory. The next piece of it that we do is we're in charge of state criminal and narcotics investigations. We run the Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center. We run state gang task force, state education for law enforcement and training. And then the final piece is the Arizona, oh, actually there's two more. There's the Arizona Counterterrorism Information Center and statewide aviation. So it's a huge job, and there's a lot of moving parts. And I've had a lot of great jobs, including being the chief here in Mesa, but by far this is the best position that I've ever had professionally.
Well, that is awesome. Well, you know what? We're all here, not only the folks here at Mesa Morning Live, but the folks watching at home on Channel 11. We're all trying to be better business people. What can we do, from your point of view, to be better citizens of not only Mesa, but Arizona? What can we help out?
It's really, to me, it's one thing, and it doesn't matter if it's involving at-risk youth, and we're working a lot with the trafficking of children and the sex trafficking that goes on. We work a lot on the interdiction piece of the narcotic terrorism that the state of Arizona gets to be one of the conduits into the country for illicit drugs. Or if it's just something that you see that's suspicious. But the real key to it is if you see something, you need to say something. Don't rationalize away unusual behavior. If you see something suspicious, call 911 and let your local police department or the Department of Public Safety come out and investigate, so we make this just a safer place to live.
Totally makes sense, common sense.
Yep.
So how would you describe, this has got to be like your old job as Mesa Police Chief. This is like your old job on steroids.
It really is. It's all scalable, and one of the things I did as the Mesa chief is I was always careful not to speak outside my borders. Well, the borders got a lot bigger, and we got to talk about the 110,000 square miles that is Arizona. And the biggest compliment that I get day in and day out is representative of the people that serve at the Arizona Department of Public Safety, and people say, hey, thank you for making Arizona a safe place to live. Thank you for what you do. That's really it. I mean, we had an aviation unit in Mesa, we had a SWAT team, we had all of those things that you have in a police department. It's just on a grander scale, covering a lot more responsibilities. And really that border security issue we've taken on as one of the missions at the request of Governor Ducey is how do we liaison with the border cities, the border counties, and really impact the human trafficking and the drug movement north into America.
Do you think that's the biggest problem that faces the state? I don't want to put words in your mouth. What is the biggest problem that faces the state?
Well, I think it's what faces the nation, and it is. It's drugs. It's America's insatiable appetite for narcotics. And it's the fact that if you look at opiate seizures, primarily black tar heroin, coming across the border, those seizures have gone up threefold in the last 5 years. The death rate in America from overdose has gone up at least 3 times. And if we, as the parents and as the leadership of the state or the country don't do something about that, we'll continue to lose our youth and it will continually negatively impact our kids. And I guess the message there is, if you are given a prescription of an opiate, oxycodone, OxyContin, one of those things for some medical procedure that you went through, when you're done, get rid of those drugs, because the kids get involved, they start using those opiates, they become addicted, and they're very expensive at a street level. A tablet of OxyContin at a school is probably $50, but a point of heroin, which is incredibly addictive, and one of 2 things are going to happen, if you get on heroin, is that you're either going to kill yourself or you will be lifetime addicted. It's that powerful of a drug. Probably that and methamphetamine are the 2 most evil things that you can get involved in, but a point of heroin in a school is $10.
Wow.
Yeah, it's not a happy commentary. You can tell by the quiet.
Got quiet here quick.
Yeah, no, and I don't want to sensationalize it at all, because it's really that bad.
And I'm sure it's not addiction does not know zip codes. This is not something that just plagues one part of society. You go into the rich high schools, it's a problem there too.
Absolutely, and I would tell anybody in the audience or anybody that's watching, go up and sign up for a ride at your local police department and go spend a shift with a police officer. You will become much more appreciative of what they do, but the other thing that you will see in living color in real life is that probably 60 or 70% of all the calls that we go on in law enforcement have something to do with drugs. I'm on drugs, I'm trying to get off of drugs, I've stolen drugs, I'm selling drugs, I've been killed trying to sell drugs. Whatever it is, I'm impaired and I'm driving. It just is an incredible problem for our state. And one of the things that I get asked about a lot is wrong-way drivers. They're very prolific now. You see a lot of that going on. Well, if you want to cure wrong-way drivers, 80% of all those people that we find that have incursions going the wrong way on a state highway or an interstate is they're impaired. They're impaired by some substance. And the other 20% are medical issues or those people who are trying to avoid or get away from law enforcement. But I mean, if we just took care of those people, we could take care of 80% of all those freeway incursions.
I just heard one the other day that I think it was the latest one. They pulled the guy, he was going the wrong way on the freeway. He self-corrected, but he hit a median or something. And then the officers showed up, and he had his pregnant wife and kids in the back seat. And he got out of the car and stripped down naked and started fighting the officers. And they said he may have been impaired. Yeah. I'm going to guess yes on that, probably.
Yeah, it's and as there's this incredible focus on law enforcement and what we do day in and day out as a profession, you see opportunities, and really what we preach to the officers is there's no better time than right now to really continue to build that relationship with your community. I mean, here in Arizona, we have a very robust relationship, and I will tell you the things that I was able to accomplish in Mesa were only able to be done with the support of the council and the citizenry of Mesa. They are good witnesses. They are good eyes and ears, because there's only so many of us, but there's a ton of you guys. And if you are good witnesses and good stewards of your neighborhood and report those suspicious activities, we're able to make an incredible impact, because there's a lot more eyes and ears out there. But they don't call if they don't believe in you and they don't trust you. A municipal police department or even a state agency is really powerless without the trust of the community. And here in Arizona, that's something that we all professionally do every day to continue to build those relationships.
You said something interesting a little while ago about signing up for a ride-along program. Is it that simple to do?
It really is. Unless you're a bad guy, we do a background check. We don't let bad guys in. Yeah, Mark, you're probably screwed on this, but
Why is that funny?
But these people are okay.
I'm always welcome to do the ride-along, but I have to be in the back seat, and that.
I've seen that.
It's so uncomfortable.
Well, it's really not a great way to ride.
Banging the head on the thing, and well, that's cool. You know what? I bet you every now and then you hear about the police in the news these days.
Every now and then.
Yeah. I bet these folks here might have a question or a comment. Or
no, and I would love to take some of the questions because it really is a great opportunity to talk about those things that are pervasive to people.
Bob is going to run it. Well, let's get serious. He may not run. He may not run a microphone, but he will mosey a microphone over to you if you've got a question. Anybody got a question for Frank?
There we go, right here in the
Come on,
front
this
row.
is the colonel here.
I have
Yes.
a question. I'm curious, as a sixth grade school teacher during the day, what it is that the department has either partnered with or what types of programs they have with the schools to inform the students, because just like you have mentioned, we've seen a huge increase in the classroom, just the exposure that the kids have to drugs.
Wow. In sixth grade.
So first off, this is a little bit of a long answer, but historically we did a lot of great things in law enforcement to build relationships with youth. We had police activity leagues. When I was a Phoenix police officer, we had the police activity league where kids came and they had a study hall and then they played basketball or they wrestled or they did something and they built relationships, especially for the children that came from with homes with less than admirable parenting, and I'll just leave it at that. But they were able to find that relationship at school. The other thing we had was the DARE program, the Drug Education Resistance Education Program. We had the GREAT program, which was about gang activity and gang violence. And we had all these officers inside schools, and we were able to build a social relationship with children and help them make good decisions. Through budget cuts and through time and through the scrutiny, they've said, well, this wasn't worthwhile, and all those things kind of went away. And now the only thing that's left, you hear about a school resource officer, but they really are a resource to the school. They're not a resource all the time to the kids, and because of the structure of those programs, they aren't able to always build social relationships. So what I started here in Mesa, and I know that Chief Mesa is continuing that program, is that we're getting back into the schools. They're trying to build a new police athletic league and to get officers involved. And I think that's something that we all have to find in our budgets to get back and get involved in kids' lives. I got back last night from Washington, D.C., and the whole meeting that we had at the White House over the last 3 days was about child sex trafficking. And again, it all starts with some subpar parenting, but it also goes to drugs and neglect. And we as law enforcement, and I actually talked to the deputy chief from the Mesa Fire Department, I talked to Forrest and I said, hey, how can we use you guys to help us better identify at-risk youth so we can make an impact on those kids? There's no panacea to fixing that. All of us have to be involved because so many people are not taking control and the responsibility of their own kids, and I know you see it every day in your school.
Got another question there, Bob?
You mentioned, Mark, about the prevalence of video now showing, police making arrests or whatever. What net impact does that have on your officers when now there's this new, I don't know if the word is fad, to videotape anything a cop does, not knowing what they have to go through day in and day out? Does that have a negative impact on an officer?
Any time that you're overly scrutinized, I think it's a stressor. But I will tell you, going back again to Mesa, we started an on-body camera program for Mesa police officers over 3 years ago. And we actually built a strategic partner with Taser International to help them beta test their first generation camera. But I think it's really analogous to those of you who are football fans is to Monday Night Football, is that the fan became disenchanted with the inconsistency of the calls of the referees, and they went to instant replay. The body cameras are really instant replay for law enforcement. The caveat is that bad guys and cops, we're all just a little bit politer when we're on camera. So that's the positive piece of it. The negative piece of it is you still have the human dynamic of perception. And when you have multiple cameras, so you have multiple officers at a single crime scene, at a single event, everybody's seeing and perceiving something different. The other thing is the human reaction to fear is different in all of us. Some of us like scary movies, some of us don't. Mark and I do not. We don't go to scary movies, but that's what I'm talking about. But so there are some complexities to that. But I think in the long run, it's going to be mandatory. I think everybody will eventually have that. I think the frustrating piece for the officers is that the national media wants to paint us all with a very broad brush and think that in every community there's a race issue, there's a perception issue. When I would tell you in my 30 years, over 30 years of law enforcement, I have never met a police officer, and I mean this sincerely, I've never met a police officer who I thought was evil and woke up one morning and thought, you know, today I'm going to go do something bad to somebody just because I can. I don't think that's how it works. I think people react to emotion, and it's the human dynamic, and it's a bad situation, and we see them, but you don't see the other 80,000 arrests that police officers make each day in the media because they're not impactful.
I've got time for one short little question here.
I think everybody's familiar with the Texas Rangers and the history there, and I see you mentioned the Arizona Rangers. Do we have Rangers in Arizona?
We do. The Arizona Rangers today are a volunteer program, and they do provide support for law enforcement, and they do exist. And they've been in Arizona long before there was municipal policing. And the one thing I don't know, sir, is if they were actually here before the sheriffs, because kind of the sheriff's offices were really the first law enforcement, or the marshal was the first law enforcement as this nation grew before we were truly a country. So, I mean, if you have a budget issue, the last thing that goes in government is law enforcement. Because without law enforcement, there's mayhem. And you know, a lot of these impoverished communities where they have these relationships that are negative with law enforcement, you go into the communities and you see bars on the windows and bars on the porches and you know, chicken wire and things well, they're not doing that to keep the police out. They're doing that to keep their neighbors out from stealing their things, and they feel in fear. And these are people that live every day in a little bit of fear, and that's why they feel protective. So law enforcement is really that key to that safety perception in the community. And I think we have to be proud of what we've accomplished in Arizona with those relationships and making this a great place to live and play and raise your family. I couldn't tell you of a better place.
That's great. Well, I know we're out of time. We could take questions all day. One thing I would like to say, let's see if I can do this off the cuff and something that makes sense. I think we're all guilty. Most of us are on Facebook or know what it is. You see a video of something that's unflattering toward a police officer. It's really easy to just make some comment or share it or whatever. Right. There's a video out now that I just saw, and we ought to share this. It's late at night, and there's two cars on the side of the road, police officer cars, and they've got a gentleman standing there next to him, and everybody's assuming that they're doing something. And when you drive by, they look, and the officers are actually changing his flat tire. And it's those kind of things that the cops don't get enough credit for. So when you see something like that, you know what? Share that, because let's face it, if the bad guy's trying to break in your house, you're not gonna call a crackhead. You're gonna call Colonel Frank, and I'll make sure that Colonel Frank's home number, you guys all get that.
That'd be great. That'd be really special. So, and I appreciate that.
But it's true. I mean, you know, it's just imagine having a video on you all day long. It scares me to think what would happen.
You probably would not be doing this right now.
Oh no, I'd be doing the ride along
in the back.
But no, you guys, seriously, as a proud Arizona resident, thanks for what you do to keep us as safe as you do. And there's always the bad guy out there, and if you don't believe that, you got your head in the sand. So thanks for looking out for it. How about a big round of applause? And don't leave.